She should have known something was off when the real estate agent didn't follow her into the house. Maria stood on the porch of the two-story Victorian with her arms folded, staring at the peeling paint and the door that hung just a little crooked, like it wasn't sure if it wanted to open or not. The agent, a thin, overly cheerful man named Rob, had stopped at the front steps and mumbled something about liability before handing her the keys like they were cursed. "Place has character," he'd said with a nervous laugh, avoiding her eyes. "History. A bit of a fixer-upper." She'd nodded, more interested in the price tag than the creaking shutters. The house was ridiculously cheap for its size, practically a steal. And for someone like Maria, freshly divorced, tired of the city, and craving a reset, it felt like fate. Even if the locals gave her strange looks when she mentioned the address. Even if the clerk at the gas station muttered something about another one. Maria ignored it all. People loved to gossip about old houses, ghost stories, urban legends, neighborhood drama. It was just small-town nonsense. She'd lived in New York for 15 years. Noise, filth, and real danger had been part of her daily life. A creepy attic and a squeaky floorboard weren't going to scare her. Inside, the house had a strange silence to it. Not peaceful silence, but the kind that feels heavy, like the walls are holding their breath. She walked through the main hallway, her boots clicking against the worn wood. The wallpaper was old and curling at the corners, stained in places like something had leaked beneath it. She tried a light switch. Nothing. The power hadn't been turned on yet. No big deal. She had a flashlight in her backpack and a generator in the car if she needed it. The kitchen was big, with an old gas stove and cabinets that hadn't been updated since the 70s. There were still plates in the sink. From who? The last owner. She paused, her eyes narrowing. She hadn't thought to ask how long the house had been empty. That night, Maria slept in the living room on an inflatable mattress, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes. She left one small lamp on, powered by a portable charger, just for comfort. She wasn't afraid, just cautious. New house, new sounds. But at 3:12 a.m. she sat bolt upright. The scream wasn't loud. It was far away, muffled, like it was coming from inside the walls. It lasted barely 2 seconds, just enough to make her question if it was real. She stared into the dark hallway beyond her lamp's glow, her pulse racing. Nothing moved, no sound followed, just the house settling. She told herself it could have been a pipe. Old houses creak, moan, hiss. Still, she didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, Maria found a pile of dirt under the window. She hadn't opened it. There were scratch marks on the glass, faint but visible if you looked close. Like fingernails. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "How's the screaming?" She dropped the phone. She hadn't told anyone about the sound. The rest of the day, she kept herself busy fixing things, removing broken blinds, cleaning out the bathroom, checking the basement. The stairs to the basement were narrow and steep, and halfway down she felt a cold spot. Just one patch of air that felt 20 degrees colder than the rest. In the corner of the basement was an old trunk, metal, rusted, sealed shut with 2 padlocks. Maria made a note to come back with bolt cutters. That night, the scream came again. Louder, sharper. It came from upstairs this time. Maria didn't go up to check. She just sat there, clutching a kitchen knife in her lap. The same cold patch now lingering at the top of the stairs. The next morning, she found something new, a photograph on the floor. Old, faded. A woman standing in the kitchen. Her kitchen, smiling. Behind her was something blurry, something that didn't look quite human, peering through the window. Maria turned the photo over. Written in ink, owner Fenny 3 dying. Lasted 5 days. She'd moved in 2 days ago. Maria spent the day trying to tell herself none of it was real. Not the screams. Not the message. Not even the photo. She stared at the black, and white image for a long time that morning, trying to convince herself it was fake, staged, maybe. A sick joke left by some neighborhood kid, or the previous owner, someone with a twisted sense of humor. But the paper felt old. The ink on the back was faded and soaked slightly into the page, like it had been there for years. And the photo itself. Maria couldn't stop thinking about the thing in the background. It wasn't clear, just a shape, but its face, what little you could see of it, was wrong. Warped. Like it had been caught in motion and wasn't shaped like a person should be. She burned the photo in the kitchen sink. It didn't make her feel better. By noon, the cold spot at the top of the basement stairs had spread. Now it covered a patch of the living room, just near the fireplace. No matter how many layers she wore, Maria felt it biting through her sleeves, like invisible frost. She kept the portable heater running, but the chill clung to that one spot like it had roots. At 3 p.m., she finally called Rob, the real estate agent. He didn't pick up. She left a message. "Hey, Rob. Just wondering if you could tell me more about the previous owners. You know, for curiosity. It's probably nothing, but the house makes noises at night. Screaming, kind of. Just weird stuff. Please call me back." She knew how it sounded. Crazy. She even laughed after she hung up. But not for long. By evening, Maria was in the basement again, staring at the old trunk in the corner. The light bulb above flickered but held. She'd brought down her bolt cutters. The trunk felt colder than the rest of the room, like it had been sitting in snow. She hesitated, then broke the locks. The lid creaked open slower than it should have, like it was resisting. Inside were only a few items: a moldy sweater, a rusted tin box, and a small notebook with the words, "D.O. Nautiste," written in shaky, desperate handwriting across the cover. Maria took the notebook upstairs. She didn't want to read it down there. The first page made her skin crawl. If you're reading this, the house already knows you're here. It watches. It feeds on fear. The screams are not echoes. They are warnings. Each page was worse than the last. Notes from someone named Daniel, owner face 6 maybe. He'd moved in, like her, thinking it was a bargain. Within 3 days, he heard voices, saw shadows. He felt watched even in the shower. His dreams were filled with faces screaming, mouths too wide, eyes gouged out. Then the house started locking him in rooms, changing where the doors led. The last entry chilled her to her core. "It won't let me leave. It screams now when I try. Please. Don't stay. Burn it all." That night, the scream came not once, but 3 times, each louder than the last, one at 1:43 a.m., another at 20:12. Then again at 300 sharp. Maria couldn't sleep. She sat in the kitchen, all the lights on, clutching a hammer in one hand and the notebook in the other. At some point, her eyes drooped. She drifted into a shallow, uneasy dozy, and woke up in the attic. She had no memory of walking there, no ladder, no creaking steps. Just opened her eyes and saw dust swirling in the air, cobwebs brushing her face. She was standing, barefoot, in front of a small child's rocking horse. It rocked once, then stopped. Behind her, something whispered her name. She spun around, heart pounding. No one. But a new message was scrawled on the attic wall in what looked like charcoal. Or blood. Woe or next tea. She ran down the stairs so fast she scraped her shin against the wall, barely noticing the blood. When she reached the kitchen, the clock read 400 a.m. Every light was off. Her flashlight was gone. And in the silence, she heard the floorboards creak upstairs, slow and deliberate, like someone, or something, was walking room to room, looking for her. Maria didn't sleep for the next 2 nights. She tried to leave the house once. Just after dawn the day following the attic incident, she threw everything she could into her car. Her backpack, laptop, charger, the bolt cutters, even the half-eaten box of cereal she'd barely touched. The sun had just crested over the trees, and the cold that usually wrapped around the house had retreated for now. She told herself this was it. She was done. No cheap house was worth this kind of madness. The engine wouldn't start. Not a cough. Not even a whimper. Just silence when she turned the key. She checked the battery. Fine. She checked the fuse. Fine. It was like the car had just died. She slammed the door shut and screamed, kicking at the front tire like it would do something. She didn't notice at first, but something on the passenger side window caught her eye. Fingerprints. 6 of them. Thin, bony, and dragging down as if someone had slowly pulled their hand away while staring in. She backed up, heart racing, staring at her own reflection in the glass, and just behind it, barely visible, was a smudge in the shape of a face. That afternoon, the house stayed mostly quiet, almost like it was resting. Like it didn't need to do anything, because it already knew she wasn't going anywhere. Maria paced for hours, reading and rereading Daniel's notebook. She found a page tucked near the back with a crude map of the house. Except it showed a hidden room beneath the stairs, behind the coat closet. There wasn't supposed to be anything there. But Maria checked anyway. She pushed aside the coats, ran her hand along the back wall, and felt a seam, barely a crack, but it was there, a false panel. She pried it open with the hammer. Behind it a narrow wooden passage, unlit, smelled like rot and iron. The air inside wasn't just cold, it was dead, like it hadn't moved in decades. She grabbed her flashlight and stepped inside. The passage descended in a tight spiral. The walls were dirt and stone, and at the bottom, the passage opened into a small, windowless room with nothing but a chair, a broken mirror, and dozens of photos nailed to the walls. Photos of every owner. She recognized some from public records she'd Googled before buying the house. A man in the 60s who died of a heart attack in bed. A woman in the 80s found drowned in the bathtub with no water damage around. A family in the early 2000s, gone without a trace. Only their dog was found, starved, maddened, clawed half to death. And now, a photo of Maria. It had been taken from behind. She was in the kitchen, pouring coffee. She couldn't even remember when. Her legs gave out. She slid down the wall, shaking. Someone had been watching her since she moved in. Someone, or something, knew her schedule, her movements, what she looked like from every angle. The mirror on the wall cracked suddenly, as if hit from behind. She leapt up and ran, flashlight swinging wildly, breath coming in short bursts. That night, it wasn't just screams, it was voices. They didn't shout, they whispered, close to her ear. Like someone leaning over her shoulder while she lay in bed. She couldn't understand most of it, but she kept hearing one word repeated in different voices. Men, women, even a child. Stay, sometimes. Join. The lights flickered constantly now. Her reflection in the mirror didn't always move when she did. And worst of all, each morning when she woke up, more furniture had moved. The dining room chairs now pointed toward the wall. Her mattress had been dragged 2 inches closer to the hallway. Even her toothbrush was now laid across the sink, balanced like a cross. At 4:13 a.m. that night, Maria opened her eyes. Something stood at the foot of her bed. No face, just a shape. Tall, crooked, not quite touching the floor. And when it tilted its head at her, she heard all the screams at once. Every owner. Every death. Every desperate cry for help. Overlapping into a single unbearable sound. She couldn't move. Her body was frozen, her mouth open in a scream she couldn't push out. The thing bent closer, and she saw it more clearly. Its skin was warped like melted wax, its mouth stitched shut by blackened wire. But its eyes, if they were eyes, they burned with something ancient. Not anger. Hunger. Then the lights cut out completely. The last thing Maria felt before blacking out was cold, bony fingers touching her face. Not violent, gentle, like it was claiming her. She woke up in the bathtub, fully clothed. Water up to her chin, ice cold. Maria thrashed and gasped as she scrambled out, coughing and shivering. Soaked to the bone. Her limbs were stiff, her head pounding. She didn't remember getting into the tub. She didn't remember walking upstairs. Hell, she didn't even remember falling asleep. The bathroom door was locked from the outside. She stood there dripping, heart racing, as her mind spiraled. Had she done this to herself? Was she losing her grip? Or was this the house again, playing with her, herding her like a mouse towards some inevitable fate? The mirror over the sink was fogged, but something was written in the condensation. Stop running. Maria punched the mirror. Not hard enough to shatter it, but enough to feel something. Pain. Proof she was real, and not just another ghost in this place. She finally pried the door open with a kitchen knife, breathing heavily as she stumbled into the hallway. Every step she took felt heavier, like the house had grown a few degrees darker. She needed to find out what this place was. That afternoon, Maria drove into town. The car had started without issue this time. Like the house had loosened its grip just long enough for her to leave, but not escape. She found the local library, the oldest building in town, dusty and forgotten, with a woman at the front desk who looked like she hadn't left that chair since the 1980s. "Hey," Maria said, her voice cracked from too many nights of screaming and silence. "I'm looking for records on a property. 328 Harlan Road." The woman stiffened. Her hand paused mid-reach for the catalog binder. "That house again," she said quietly, like speaking too loud would summon something. "What do you want to know?" "Anything," Maria whispered. "Who built it? Who lived there? Who died?" The woman hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Follow me." They walked through rows of aging file cabinets until they reached a back corner where the air felt heavier, more still. She pulled a thin folder from a drawer labeled Incidents, Harlan District. Maria flipped through yellowed papers, newspaper clippings, and old photographs. Her hands trembled. It started in 1894. The original builder was a man named Caleb Weaver, a former undertaker who reportedly went mad after losing his wife and child to scarlet fever. He built the house by hand. No contractors, no permits. Just him and grief. Local legends said he started holding seances, trying to call them back. And something had answered. Neighbors reported screams, lights at odd hours, animals going missing. Eventually, a traveling priest was called. The town's first and only documented exorcism happened in that house. Didn't work. The priest vanished. Caleb was later found in the basement, hung upside down with his eyes missing. No footprints, no signs of a struggle. The case was never solved, and from then on, every owner had died in or around the house, always violently, always with no clear explanation. Even renters didn't last more than a week. Maria slammed the folder shut. The librarian gave her a long look. "You're not staying there, are you?" "I didn't know. I didn't." She stopped, the panic rising in her throat. "I didn't believe any of it." "Leave," the woman said, flatly. "Tonight. Don't wait." Maria returned to the house just after sunset. Something felt different now. The air was thicker, almost electric. As she opened the door, it creaked louder than ever, groaning like something waking up after a long nap. Inside, the house was darker than it should have been. Even with the porch light on behind her, the shadows stretched across the floor, unnaturally far. The living room light wouldn't turn on. Neither would the kitchen. The flashlight flickered and died in her hand. Then she heard the whisper again. Only this time it didn't say stay. It said her name. Over and over. Maria, Maria, Maria. She ran for the basement, to the secret room. If there were answers, they were down there. But when she reached it, the door was gone. Replaced with smooth, unbroken drywall. No seams. No crack. Like it had never existed. The house had sealed it away. She turned back toward the stairs, and froze. At the top stood the figure. Clear now. Not blurred. Its face was stitched. Its limbs too long. Its mouth, though closed by metal wire, moved slightly. Whispers poured out from everywhere, walls, floors, inside her own ears. The lights flickered once. Then Maria saw something that made her soul collapse inside her. A second figure stood behind her. In the reflection of the kitchen window, another shape loomed, silent, watching. It had her face, but the eyes were empty. She turned around, no one there. And yet, she wasn't alone anymore. Maria didn't remember falling. One moment she was standing at the bottom of the stairs, staring at the space where the figure had been. The next, she was lying on the floor, her head throbbing, her mouth filled with the bitter taste of copper. Blood. She reached up and touched her scalp, wet. Had she blacked out? The living room was quiet now, too quiet. The kind of silence that didn't just fill a room, it suffocated it. Even the hum of the wind outside had vanished. No creaks, no groans. Just stillness, like the house had frozen in time, waiting. She stood slowly, each movement laced with pain. Her legs trembled. Her heart thudded unevenly. Her mind was foggy, heavy, like someone had poured cement into her thoughts. She went to the kitchen, thinking she'd wash the blood off. But when she flipped the tap, nothing came out, not even a drop. Then she noticed the smell. Not metallic, not moldy, rot. She turned toward the sink, and her stomach lurched. The drain was stuffed with black hair, long strands, matted and clumped, curled like dead worms. She gagged and stumbled back, her heel striking something solid. A chair. It was from the dining room, but it was now in the kitchen, facing the corner. Like someone had been sitting there, facing the wall, silently. She backed away, slowly, trying not to blink. Then she saw it. On the floor, written in what looked like dried blood, was a single word. Unknowingly. She dropped the knife she hadn't even realized she was still holding. That was when the knocking started. Not from the front door, from inside the walls. Soft at first, then louder, then closer. Like something was crawling through the beams, moving toward her. It circled the room, over her head, then behind her. She spun, nothing. She ran to the front door, locked, deadbolt stuck. No give. She turned and sprinted toward the back, through the mudroom, only to find that door nailed shut. Thick wooden planks, like they'd been hammered in long ago. She didn't remember seeing those before. She rushed upstairs. Maybe the windows. But everyone had been screwed shut from the outside. The nails were old, rusted, as if someone, at some point, had wanted to make sure nothing got out. Or maybe that nothing got in. In the hallway, the lights flickered. Then all 5 doors on the second floor slammed shut at once. The floorboards shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. Maria fell back against the wall, panting, tears running down her cheeks now. Not from fear, from rage. She screamed at the top of her lungs. Noir het dio, wo went from me. Silence answered, then a whisper. But this time, it came from inside her own mouth. She didn't say anything, but the sound came anyway. A dry, crackling voice that wasn't hers. You. Maria collapsed to her knees, choking, spitting, clawing at her throat like the voice had rooted itself there. Then came the vision. Not a dream, not imagination, a full body, bone, deep knowing. She saw the house not as it was, but as it had been, alive, teeming with pain. Caleb Weaver in the basement, drawing symbols on the wall in his wife's blood. A seance gone wrong. A doorway ripped open. Something let through. She saw the thing. Not a ghost. Not a demon. Something else. A shadow that needed a house the way a parasite needs a host. It fed on fear. It wore the faces of those it consumed, and now it had hers. Because in the next heartbeat, Maria saw herself, outside the house, standing on the porch, smiling. But she wasn't out there. She was still in here. She crawled to the mirror at the end of the hallway. Her reflection stared back. But it wasn't her anymore. Its mouth smiled before hers did. Maria slammed her palm into the mirror. It cracked down the center, splintering her reflection into 100 jagged pieces. But the thing inside the glass didn't flinch. Her own face. No, its face, just stared at her with that smug, dead smile, like it knew something she didn't, like the game was already over. She backed away slowly, heart hammering against her ribs like it was trying to escape. The hallway light above buzzed and flickered, casting her shadow long and twitching on the wall. Except it wasn't just hers. Another shadow stood just behind her. It moved when she didn't. She spun around, but again, nothing. Only the hallway, stretching endlessly now. Longer than it had ever been. The walls seemed warped, bulging in places, like the house itself was breathing slow and steady. And then the floor opened beneath her. Not in the literal sense, but her knees buckled, her balance gone. The hallway tilted, and she went sliding, tumbling down what had once been a staircase, but now twisted into something far deeper, far older. She landed hard, groaning. Her vision swam. She was in the basement. But it wasn't the one she remembered. It was darker, wetter. The walls were slick, alive, breathing. This wasn't a house anymore. It was a body. The stone walls pulsed, and the floor squished under her like wet carpet. She stumbled forward, gagging from the smell, death, rot, something worse than either. And ahead of her, barely lit by a soft red glow, stood the door. Not a regular door. A tall, arched thing made of bone and rusted metal. Symbols carved into its frame, similar to the ones from Caleb's notebook, burned faintly in red light. From behind it came whispering, no longer just voices, names. Her name, Maria, 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 said lovingly, said with hunger, said over and over like a ritual. She reached out, drawn like a moth to flame. Her fingers brushed the cold surface of the door, and immediately visions surged through her. She saw herself lying in the hallway, eyes open but lifeless. She saw the house listed for sale again, fresh paint slapped on the rot. She saw a new family, a couple, a child, moving in, laughing, unaware. She saw her own face in the window, smiling at them, welcoming them. She saw herself inside the house, and the house inside her. She yanked her hand away. "No," she whispered. "Not me. You don't get me." But the house laughed, not with sound, but with motion. The walls trembled. Pipes groaned. And from every crevice, every corner, shapes began to crawl out. Too fast to be human, too twisted to be anything else. They circled her, each one wearing a piece of a former owner. A jaw here, a melted eye there, a woman in a blood-soaked wedding dress, a man with no hands, teeth where his palms should be, and behind them all, it, the stitched, mouthed thing, the original, the host. It stepped forward, arms long enough to drag on the floor. Its mouth unraveled one wire at a time. With each snap, a new scream echoed in the chamber. Maria backed into the door, chest heaving, eyes wide. "No," she said again, louder. "I won't be next. I won't." The door opened behind her. It didn't swing, it breathed open, and on the other side, void, a place without light, without time. Screams floated out like bubbles, rising and popping. Hands reached from within, clawing for purchase. She felt it pulling her. Her body, her mind. The house wanted to add her to its collection. But Maria had one thing it didn't expect. She laughed. Not loud, not unhinged, but sharp, full of defiance. "I know your name now," she whispered. The shadows paused. "You think I didn't see it? In the notebook, on the wall, in the visions. I know what you are." The stitched thing tilted its head. "I say your name," she said, "and you're not the predator anymore. You're the prey." She closed her eyes and screamed it. The house shook violently. The thing recoiled, its body twisting in agony. She screamed again, louder, voice hoarse and ragged. "Celigoar." The walls cracked. The void shrieked. The house began to collapse inward like a dying lung. The door behind her slammed shut. And then, everything went still. Maria lay flat on the floor, every inch of her body aching. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that comes after a bomb drops. The walls no longer pulsed. The whispers had stopped. Even the air seemed thinner, like the house had exhaled its final breath. She sat up slowly. The basement, if that's what it still was, looked dead. The living veins that once throbbed along the walls had dried and cracked like old roots. The ground beneath her was now hard stone, covered in ash and dust. The stench of rot was gone, replaced by a metallic tang that lingered in the back of her throat. She stood, dizzy but upright. Had she done it? Had speaking its name really worked? Gallagher, she whispered again, but nothing happened. No tremor, no shriek, no pull from the void, just her own voice, shaking and small in a room that felt ancient and used up. Maybe it was over, but the house, it wasn't gone. And neither was she. Maria stumbled her way up the stairs, each step creaking beneath her weight. When she reached the main floor, she stopped. The house looked different. Or maybe she did. The colors seemed faded. The corners too sharp. The light filtering in through the curtains didn't warm anything. She walked through each room. The kitchen, empty. The dining room, silent. The hallway mirror was broken still, the crack splitting her face in two. She stepped outside. The front door opened this time, as if it had been waiting for her to leave. No resistance. No slam behind her. The porch creaked beneath her feet, and the afternoon sun fell across her skin like a warm hand. It should have felt like victory. But it didn't, because Maria could still feel the house inside her. She got in the car and drove. Away from 328 Harlan Road. Away from the smell, the screams. The stitched, mouthed thing. She drove until her gas light blinked, and then another hour more. She didn't stop until she found a cheap roadside motel, the kind that smelled like bleach and cigarette smoke. She showered, scrubbed herself raw. Still felt unclean. She slept with the lights on, dreamless. But even in the quiet, she kept waking, convinced someone was standing at the foot of her bed. Weeks passed. She didn't tell anyone. Not the police. Not the local paper. Not even a therapist. What could she say? I screamed the name of a demon that lives in drywall and rotted wood. And now I can't look in mirrors without seeing something blink at me from the wrong side. She moved into a new apartment. Brand new. White walls. Bright light. No history. And for a while, things were almost normal. Until one night, while brushing her teeth, she noticed the medicine cabinet was open. She hadn't touched it. Inside was a folded photograph. Old. Yellowing. She pulled it out. It was a picture of her, standing in the kitchen of the Harlan house, pouring coffee. The same one from before. Only this time, in the reflection of the window, there were two figures. One behind her, and one watching from inside the glass. She dropped the photo, backed away slowly. Her heart was beating so fast it hurt. And just before she turned off the bathroom light, she looked at the mirror one last time. Her reflection didn't move. It just smiled. Maria didn't leave her apartment for 3 days. She kept the lights on, every bulb burning at full power, like it could keep the dark at bay. She taped the bathroom mirror over with newspaper. Threw out every reflective surface she could find. TV screen, her phone's front camera, even a teaspoon that glinted too much in the light. It didn't help, because she could feel it. Something had followed her. She told herself it was trauma, stress, psychological residue from the hell she'd barely escaped. But deep down, she knew that wasn't it. The house wasn't a place. It was a thing, and that thing had marked her. Each night, the dreams grew worse. She wandered through shifting halls, doors multiplying, closing behind her. She'd see flashes of faces. Caleb, Daniel, the faceless bride, even her own eyes staring back from bodies that weren't hers. Always, in the distance, came the scream, echoing, crawling toward her. And always she woke up at exactly 3:13 a.m., the time of the first scream in the house. She stopped sleeping. One morning, Maria walked into the kitchen and found her cabinets wide open. Every one. Plates broken on the floor. A chair turned toward the corner. A faint message scrawled in red on the fridge door. "Let us in." She scrubbed it off with bleach until the smell made her dizzy. But when she looked down, her hands were smeared with something darker than ink. She hadn't written it. Had she? On the fourth night, the mirror tape peeled itself off. She heard it fall in the middle of the night, paper rustling to the tile floor. When she entered the bathroom, the mirror was clean, spotless, and in it, her reflection was smiling again. But Maria wasn't. She smashed it with her fist. Blood poured down her arm. Pain grounded her, reminded her she was still real, still here. But her reflection remained in the shards, flickering in every piece. And in one of them, the reflection leaned in and whispered, "You brought us out." She dropped to her knees, breathing shallow, crying silently. All this time, she thought she'd escaped. That naming the thing, breaking its power, would end it. But she hadn't ended anything. She'd broken the seal. The house had always been a prison, not a nest. And when she forced it to collapse inward, when she called its name and cracked its form, it hadn't died. It had leaked. Now it was free, in her, around her. She wasn't haunted. She was haunting. That realization didn't hit like a scream. It hit like a whisper, quiet and undeniable. Something inside her had changed. Her shadow lingered a little too long. Sometimes it moved when she didn't. Electronics flickered around her. Dogs growled in her direction. Children stared like they were seeing something behind her. She was becoming a doorway. Just like the house, she tried to warn people. Left notes in libraries. Scribbled journal entries in thrift stores. Posted stories anonymously online under usernames that disappeared overnight. No one believed her, and one day, someone bought the house again. It went back on the market, fixed up, repainted, staged with fake plants and warm lighting. The online listing said it had good bones and classic charm. A young couple bought it, newlyweds. Maria watched the announcement online, and in the background of the photo, taken on their move-in day, was the front window. And in that window was her face, grinning like she'd never left.